to this event tonight. Thank you so much for coming out and saluting Chairman Omali Yeshitela. It's 50 years ago this year that Chairman Omali Yeshitela courageously ripped down the obscene, racist, anti-African mural that had hung in City Hall since the 1940s in full view of everybody. If you can see a picture here, this is a little bit of it, but it showed hideous caricatures, not even a caricature, just some kind of fantasy kind of thing that they had created, entertaining white tourists on the beach of St. Petersburg. And as a young leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was called SNCC, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, then known as Joseph Waller, was leading a demonstration on December 29th, 1966. And the demonstration was against the city's plans to spend $50 million for downtown redevelopment without putting a cent into economic development for the African community. So that sounds totally like today, right? Nothing has changed. So on this day, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and other members of SNCC and the African community here in St. Petersburg, they marched from 22nd Street South to the steps of City Hall, where they held a press conference. The chairman says, and when he tells the story, he will tell you more about it, but he says that he did not plan to take down the mural that day, even though the city had petitioned. Even though SNCC and the African community had petitioned the city to take down the mural, sent many letters requesting that, which was brutally responded to, and of course unheeded. The city never would even consider doing that. But marching to City Hall, the SNCC members and Chairman Omali Yeshitela had a press conference on the steps of City Hall. And when the white media arrogantly and blatantly disrespected an elderly, impoverished African woman who also spoke at the press conference, the chairman turned on his heels and made a lightning quick decision to go into the building and tear down the mural. Uhuru. The city of St. Petersburg prosecuted Chairman Omali Yeshitela on multiple charges, and he faced several trials. He was sentenced to 5 years on a felony conviction, and he served 2.5 years in prison. And he still has no Second Amendment rights, so he has never regained all of his rights. The act by Chairman Omali Yeshitela was a powerful contribution to the Black Revolution of the 1960s. It is a very important, significant, one of the most significant political acts in the history of St. Petersburg. And for one thing, this tearing down of the mural, which was applauded not only by the African community, but by every freedom-loving person in the city of St. Petersburg, set the terms so that no public building in the whole country could ever hold portrayals of African people in a white nationalist, racist, or subservient or colonial position again. And I'm sure that all over the country, there were city halls taking down similar pictures that they had. So he set the terms for what had to be shown by a city in public. And you remember the history here in St. Petersburg of the green benches that were started in 1916, that were a tourist attraction, and old white people could come to Central Avenue and sit on these green benches. But if an African ever sat on a bench, he or she was immediately arrested. When did St. Pete get rid of those green benches? 1967, right after the chairman tore down the mural. So he changed the political terrain in the city and around the country. And his act also influenced actions of the Black Panther Party in the 1960s. Right after that, they went to, a few months later, the Black Panthers from Oakland went to Sacramento with their guns because they had the right to carry guns, and went to, I think it was one of the legislative buildings in Sacramento, California. And that was something that really built the Black Panther Party. So what the chairman's act revealed was what African people all over this country and what oppressed and impoverished people all over the world were struggling against. A system built on the enslavement of African people, a system that had involved Europe's assault on Africa, turning African people into commodities, the first commodities of capitalism. This is what started capitalism. And the enslavement of African people and the genocide and the theft of Africa's resources and the brilliance and genius of African people. It also exposed that this country is built on the genocide against the indigenous people, and that this is what built the wealth and power of the US, the corporations, the city of St. Petersburg, and white people. Because without the enslavement of African people, without the genocide of the indigenous people, there wouldn't be an America. There wouldn't be a wealthy Europe. There wouldn't be the system that could go around the world and oppress or bomb or occupy anybody else that they want. So as a white person here in St. Petersburg, working under the leadership of the Uhuru movement and Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Solidarity Committee, I want to say thank you, Chairman, for taking down this mural. Thank you for doing what we should have done, what white people should have said, we will not have this represent us in this city. The city of St. Petersburg can't do this. And that what the chairman did exposed the determination of the African community and the African working class, and that made it clear that white people are not going to party on the beach or live in St. Petersburg or any place else in this country or this world at the expense of the life, dignity, poverty, self-determination of the African community. Uhuru. But now the city of St. Petersburg, that spot has been empty for 50 years. They could never put anything there. But now the city of St. Petersburg wants to whitewash this history. They're saying that they're paying $50,000 actually to an artist to create a new mural that's going to go there that would also show the inclusivity of St. Petersburg, how St. Petersburg has come this far. And we know that that's a lie. We know that this is a city where just a few months ago, the daughter of Kundai, who's going to speak a little bit later, and two of her friends were pushed into a pond, who were corralled and forced into a pond and murdered by the sheriff's department here in St. Petersburg. This is the city where 17-year-old Marquel McCullough was shot and gunned down by the sheriffs. And then afterwards they said, oops, wrong person. You know, this is the city where Mural Walker was sleeping and his baby was in the room next door and the sheriffs came in and shot him point blank. So we're going to talk about some kind of inclusivity, some kind of change. It's the same conditions, the same St. Petersburg. And that we know that the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, and the African community is calling for a plaque. There has to be a plaque. This is a historic event. They cannot replace it with something else to make it seem like things have changed. So before we go on, I want to introduce a few people who are here in the room. I want to salute Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, who is also an amazing leader of the Uhuru movement, of the African People's Socialist Party, who's over the whole economic front of the African People's Socialist Party, the dual power, the furniture stores, the Uhuru Foods and Pies, the institutions, the gym that's over on 9th Street, just so many other things that we could have a whole event that would tell you all about it. The Black Star Industries that are, represent the struggle for economic power in the hands of African people. So I want to salute her. I want to salute Jay Lasita, Mr. Jay Lasita, who is here, who was a city councilman in, 1999, and was the person who brought the issue of the plaque to city council back then. And there was always one too many people on the right side, I would say, on the white nationalist side of city council who voted against that. But it needs to come back to city council, and that's something that we have to force. This arts committee cannot make this determination. They cannot make this determination. And I want to salute Pop Lancaster, who is here tonight taking pictures, who was here back in the day that you were here when this happened in 1966, and it was part of the junta of militant organizations and the other organizations of the chairman. I want to salute the chairman's chief of staff, Akenge Mayele. And I also want to salute James McLinus, who really is, well, he's running for sheriff against Killer Bob Galtieri. So we salute that. And he's shown tremendous support for the struggle, that Kundai, the mother of Dominique Justice, and others in the African community have raised against this occupying force that is the police, the colonial army, and the sheriff's department against the African community of this city. So we support him and all of the support that he's given. So I just want to say that I am Penny Hess. I'm the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which was actually formed 40 years ago this year. And so it was 10 years after the chairman took down the mural. He formed in 1972 the African People's Socialist Party. And then in 1976, he formed the African People's Solidarity Committee. And for whatever twist of fate, I was there, and I was one, because once I heard the truth, once I began to understand why things are the way they are and how do we rectify this relationship between white people and African people, and that it wasn't a struggle against racism, it's a struggle of African people for power over their lives. It's a struggle against colonialism, just like any other place in this country, and that it was clear to us that our job is to go into the white communities, organize other people like ourselves to recognize this, our ability to live life is built on a pedestal of enslavement, of genocide, and of oppression against people around the world and the theft of their resources, and that our work is reparations to African people. So on October 2nd of this year, just coming up in a couple weeks, we're going to have the African People's Solidarity Day, which is our major event that we have from the white community expressing solidarity with the struggle, the liberation, and the right to self-government for African people all over the world. We're going to be having that, by the way, in Boston, in Oakland, California, in San Diego, in Huntsville, Alabama, in Gainesville, and probably some places that I'm forgetting, and Seattle, that's right. So we're very excited about that. And the first one will be Sunday, October 2nd. You all are welcome here, and we'll hear a little bit more about that. So I just wanted to say one more thing, and that the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party, has said that and the chairman himself, if another mural is put up, we'll tear it down. We'll tear it down again. It has no right to be there. And that what is being struggled for is Black community control of the mural. The African community will say and will determine what is going to go there. And certainly we believe that it has to be a historic plaque. It has to educate people to what happened here so that we can be proud of knowing that this incredible event happened here in St. Petersburg, Florida, that the chairman paid a price, that the city owes reparations, and that we want to build this plaque. So we're going to show a brief video that tells a little bit of the story in the context of the mural. And then after that, we're going to bring up Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So, Uhuru.
In 1966, when I tore that mural down, it was the rise of Black Power, the Black Power movement in this country. And I was the representative of the Black Power movement in this city. What we are referencing today is something that occurred 50 years ago. And what the city is attempting to do now is to replace that mural that was there with an image that presupposes that things have gotten so much better for African people in this city subsequent to then. We say that's a lie. This mural was really a racialized caricature of Black people that satisfied the viewpoint of a bigoted artist and all its appreciative viewers. So on December 29th, 1966, after much protest to the city government of St. Petersburg, I led a march to this city hall, where I entered and tore from the wall 4x8 foot mural that had graced this building since 1940. The city is offering a $10,000 bounty to an artist willing to lie by creating a replacement mural that, according to them, respects the events that caused the still vacant space where the mural once hung, while celebrating the advances in civil rights and inclusivity in the city today. They had said nothing to me. They said nothing to John Bryant, who was jailed with me. They said nothing to Joseph Wall, who was 17 years old when we took that picture down and spent 14 months in prison. They said nothing to Lemia Green, who is now passed away, or Crawford Jones, or Tommy Williams. They said nothing to us, but they were going to go about and they were going to have an artist do something that they would decide represented the events that led to the removal of the mural. They would seat the Black representatives from the Democratic parties and not seat the lynch mob white Democrats there. And based on this promise, Africans and others went into Mississippi. This was in 1964. We went into Mississippi and organized the Mississippi Freedom Mississippi Freedom Summer of 1964.
Will the delegates please be seated? The state convention for the Freedom Democratic Party is now in session.
And we went to Atlantic City, and of course, the great white liberal Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was then the president, had Hubert Humphrey, who was another great white liberal Democratic Party guy, along with Walter Mondale, great white liberal Democratic Party guy, to talk to the SNCC and other organizers to accept 2 non-voting seats, saying that they were going to seat those white lynch mob Democrats there. That was in 1964, and Fannie Lou Hamer made the famous statement that we didn't come here for no 2 seats when everybody is tired.
Fannie Lou Hamer, the sharecropper who had been evicted from her plantation, had come to symbolize the Mississippi movement.
Mr. Chairman, and to the Credentials Committee, it was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to the county courthouse in Indianola, tried to register to become first-class citizens. We was met in Indianola by policemen.
The president, Lyndon Johnson, he's not afraid of Martin Luther King's testimony. He's afraid of Fannie Lou Hamer's testimony. And so he decides that the country should not see her testify live.
I began to scream, and one white man got up and began to beat me in the head and tell me to hush.
You listen to Mrs. Hamer and you're absolutely convinced that there's absolutely no justification for seating this all-white delegation.
SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, went then into Lowndes County, Alabama, and organized the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. Said we would create our own Black political party in a majority Black county so that we can have our own representation. This was an important step that SNCC took. In 1965, for example, after the betrayal by white liberals in Atlantic City, New Jersey, who had promised Africans that if we should get together and come to the Atlantic City National Democratic Party Convention, they would seat the Black representatives from the Democratic parties and not seat the lynch mob white Democrats. The symbol for the Alabama Democratic Party was a white rooster, and SNCC chose as a symbol a Black Panther. And this is where the iconic Black Panther came from. This was, and people referred to it as the Black Panther Party. Now, this was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that had organized the Lowndes County Freedom Organization and had organized the Black Panther Party. I was a member of SNCC. I became a member of SNCC, and we organized our office in St. Petersburg, Florida, and we had a huge Black Panther on our outer office wall because we adopted the symbol that came from SNCC, from Lowndes County. It was an exciting symbol. It was a heady period of struggle for African people in this country. We were engaged with the city of St. Petersburg, Florida, in a serious struggle about just the rights of African people in St. Petersburg, Florida, and the fact that they had were going to receive something like a $50 million federal grant that they were going to use to beautify downtown white St. Petersburg. And we struggled against that and said that instead that money should go towards some kind of economic development for the African community. So we initiated some demonstrations, and when we called for the demonstration, announced that we were going to do the demonstration, some of the traditional Black leaders got together and denounced it to the white media, saying that they were opposed to any kind of demonstration, and they came out against us. They held secret meetings. We marched on that city hall. And we marched, we had made the focus of our march this 8x4 foot racialized mural that was to show this caricature of African people, African men entertaining white people at a beach in this area. And when we were marching, an older African woman saw us marching, and she jumped in the demonstration, in the march with us, and we went to the city hall. And when she began to speak, the white policemen and the white reporters who were standing in front of the steps where she spoke began to laugh at her. We had not planned to take that mural down on that day. But when they began to laugh at the old woman, it incensed me, infuriated me, because to them, what they were viewing was something that was representative of the mural that they had hanging there on the wall in the city of St. Petersburg. And so I was angered, and I turned on my heel and charged into the city hall, and I was followed by Jody Wall, 17 years old. I found a corner on the mural, snatched the mural from the wall, and Jody and I marched out of the city hall with the mural. Now, that wasn't the end of it. And the point that I want to make is that there was history. There was incredible struggle that was happening with our people at that time. Africans were being murdered and brutalized, just as they are today, except then we had a situation where the people who were killing us were much more honest and said they were doing it to us because we were Black. SNCC was effectively the Black Panther Party. So SNCC and the Black Panther Party, the Black Panther was here in St. Petersburg, Florida, where we stormed the city hall. And then a little more than 4 months after, we saw another group of Panthers storm into a government building. This time it was the Sacramento State Legislature. And they, as I mentioned, they went there with guns. So you saw this escalation, and this was a part of the entire process that we're talking about. African people were engaged in serious struggle at that time, as we are today. But an outstanding thing at that moment was it was a struggle that was revolving more and more around the question of self-determination, direct action, and the demand that African people have control of our own affairs. And when it came to that mural, we demanded control of our own image, and we demanded that the monies and resources that come from the Black community, the African community in St. Petersburg, go toward the African community in St. Petersburg, and said that the white people in the city government did not have a right to depict us in that fashion on that wall. We don't allow the city of St. Petersburg to have the right to depict us and our history in 2016. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. So we demand Black community control of the mural.
Chairman Omali Yeshitela to speak to you tonight. And at the door, there were these brochures. They are just filled with information of incredible organization, books, just so many places where the chairman has spoken all over the world. I hope you will read this. We could write a whole book on just what the chairman has created and what he has led, because he has never stopped struggling since that day in 1966 and even before that until this day. He has fought wherever there is injustice to African people. He has fought for the right of Africa and African people to be united, for Africans to have control over their lives, and for reparations and the stolen resources of the stolen labor of African people be returned to African people. And this is a vision that is still as true and vibrant and even a bigger movement today than it's ever been. And, you know, I think that people in St. Petersburg sometimes think that, well, the Uhuru House is here, Chairman Omali Yeshitela is here. They don't realize that the chairman has spoken. He has organization in South Africa, in Sierra Leone, in Kenya. He has organization in the Caribbean. He has organization in London, in Sweden, and he has spoken all over the world. And also that on every possible kind of struggle of oppressed peoples, the chairman and the African People's Socialist Party has given its deepest international solidarity with the Palestinian people, with the people of Venezuela, the people of Nicaragua, the oppressed peoples and struggles around the world. And so many of these forces have embraced the chairman, have wanted the chairman to be their leader, have so much respect and see and understand the vision that the chairman has and upholds, of that we can and must build a world without oppression, without the oppressors and without the oppressed, in which all human beings have power, have their resources, have self-determination. This is the only basis to end war, to end the suffering that exists on this planet. And this is what the chairman has fought for. And, you know, we have to understand that message is growing around the world. Also, one of the things that is so moving and profound about Chairman Omali Yeshitela is that he survived the US government's assault on the Black Power movement of the 1960s that assassinated Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, and so many others, and imprisoned so many. And because he had a party, he had an organization, he was able to survive that when nobody else was there, when the US government had built prisons for so many and put so many African people in it, so that we have the largest prison population in the entire world inside the United States. And when the US government put drugs and crack cocaine and heroin into the African community to criminalize it, the chairman was there, and he always had incredible faith and belief in the African working class, and upheld the struggle of the poor and impoverished African working class to take power and to win their liberation. So I just want to say the chairman has never stopped fighting. He's amazing. He runs, he lifts weights. He's a vegetarian, vegan, and he has more energy than a lot of comrades who are maybe 50 or 60 years younger than he is. He wants it done yesterday, and he's here to fight for his entire life. So it is my honor to have worked under Chairman Omali Yeshitela's leadership for 40 years and to welcome him tonight. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru. Uhuru, I want to thank you so much. And I'd like to thank Penny Hess for that incredible presentation. Penny mentioned that I met her about 40 years ago, and she was one to participate in this movement. And I'd like to express my appreciation to all of you who have come out. I see some people I've known for a long time. Some of you are in the movement, some who've been around the movement, some who've been friends, and some who have other interests. But it's good to see everybody here. And I want to welcome you to the Uhuru House. Uhuru is Swahili for freedom. And we are often referred to as the Uhurus. And I don't mind that because that's exactly what we stand for. And you will notice that in greetings and when we meet each other, when we separate on the phone, Uhuru, Uhuru, Uhuru. And we say that because we believe that freedom should be on the minds of African people 24 hours a day. And so with that, I'd like to say Uhuru to you, Uhuru. And I would like to say also welcome, which in Tree and Ghana is Akwaba, which is the name of this hall, Akwaba Hall. So I want to welcome all of you and express my appreciation to you for coming out. And while, and I want you to be here too, because there are a lot of myths and outright lies that out in the world. Some about this mural, and which is one of the reasons we're talking about the mural today. Some about this movement, some about me. This is my wife. She black, okay? Because I hear all the garbage and it's not an accident that, people come all the way from different parts in the country asking me about my white wife. And what makes it really interesting is most of the people who accuse me of having a white wife are assimilationists themselves, right? So this is my wife, and so I'm glad to be able to introduce this is Ona Zane Yeshitela. And also, I want to welcome you to this institution, the Uhuru House, because there are a lot of rumors that have come out about this Uhuru House. I've heard that the Uhuru House are sold out, and that the government gave us this house, or somebody gave us this building, and that's why we got this building, because the white people or somebody gave it to us. And I mean, it's just an extraordinary lie. It's the kind of stuff that people say when they want to undermine a movement. And this is a movement, and this is a movement about self-determination. It's a movement about being able to have a meeting in your own building and nobody can come and say, okay, time out and get out of the building. This is our building. We are buying this building. We've been in the process of buying this building for a long time. We got a building in Oakland, California. It's our building. It's called the Uhuru House. We have a furniture store in Oakland, California. We have a furniture store in Philadelphia. We have a marketplace in Philadelphia with more than 100 vendors and we created this so that these vendors have a means by which they can make a living. More than 100 vendors every week at Clark Park, Uhuru Park in Philadelphia. This is the kind of work we do. And we do this because we know that if we don't fund ourselves, right, if the government funds you, if the corporations fund you, then they tell you what to do. And we determine not to be under the direction of anybody except this community. So the only time we have ever taken money from the government, and this was the biggest error we ever made, this was shortly after the rebellions that developed here, and Tyrone Lewis was murdered by the police, St. Petersburg Police Department, James Knight and Sandra Minor, on October 24th, 1996. And the Negro so-called business persons, so-called entrepreneurs who actually foolishly thought that they were capitalists because they didn't know what a capitalist is, were complaining because the city government every year get a lot of money from the federal government. That's called Community Development Block Grant money. And they use the statistics from poverty in the black community to get the money. But the black people never saw the money as much as we tried. They gave money to the Hilton Hotel. They gave money to do the parking lot for the Dome. They gave money for all kinds of stuff, but Africans couldn't get the money. But at the time, we had a capacity, an organized capacity in this community. So when it opened up, we could get the money. We want to get the money to set a precedent so the Negroes who wanted the money could get the money. That's the only reason we did it. And we forced the city to give us some money. We had our own building. We had our own equipment. We forced the city to give us some money for that gym and for some equipment in that gym. And right after we did that, you know what the city did? With the assistance of a Negro on the city council, they changed the rules so that black people could not get the money anymore. Or you could get it, but in order to get it, you had to have an amount of money equal to that you were asking for. So that's the only time. And that was a horrible experience. It has been a horrible experience because they would try to tell you what to do. I think they've learned a little that that's impossible. But there are people who are around who know of opportunity, of attempts to give us money, to pay us, to buy us off. Guy who owned that building on 34th Street, on the business at the time. Was it called Claridian or something like that? Ceridian? He offered me $50,000. He said $50,000. I was working at that time with the Coalition for African American Leadership. I said, we don't want your money, give it to the coalition. He said, no, it's for you. He said, I gave it to Darryl Rousson. Here's $50,000 for you. I said, no, thank you. Similar, who created, who did this dirty deal with the city of St. Petersburg behind the backs of our community when we were demanding economic development for our community, and they instead worked with a handful of Negroes in the closet and did this thing with the down the street. You know what I'm talking about. This where Walmart is now. Sweet Bay, I think it was called, or something like that before. But when Sembler was the main force that was dealing with that entity downtown, what was it called? Baywalk. And it wasn't making any money. And because the African community were being hounded, young people, when they go there, they even had insulting signs and things that you can't wear your hat backwards and stuff like that because it was targeting Africans. They didn't want Africans there. They just wanted white people down there. And so the thing wasn't doing any business. And so they approached me. The main guy who works for Sembler, they approached me. Not just them, but some other guy, important person at the time with the city, and some other people who had contacts. And they said, look, what can you do? I said, here's what you can do. You can make that place African friendly, first of all. You can turn it into an institution that invites the African community. You can do cultural things that's there. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff, and we'll run it for you. We'll run that aspect for you. He said, fine. Also, we're going to open up this place where Sweet Bay is. We're going to have shops down there. You want to have something to do? I said, yeah, I want to have Winky Wright. Winky doesn't even know this. I want to have a place where Winky can open a business and what have you. And other Africans can have a business there. They said, okay, that's cool. And then what happened was that they decided that people couldn't have free speech there. Some people wanted to demonstrate out there around, it may have been some war or something to that effect. And they said that people couldn't have free speech there. So who organized the group to go there and make a demonstration there? Because we refuse to see any assault on the rights of the people to demonstrate and exercise free speech. And you can't pay us not to do that. When we did it, they said, we don't want to deal with you. I said, fine. I know you don't want to deal with me, because if it comes at the expense of free speech, we don't want it. So this is who we are. And I want to be clear. I want to be clear about who we are, because they've never, ever been able to pay me off. And they have always tried to pay me off until they got tired of me jumping up on their desk and screaming in their faces, what an insult. So I want to just say, first of all, thank you for the video that we just saw. Because without the video, there can be some confusion about what this issue is all about. It's not about a mural. It really isn't about a picture. It's about the fact that people need to be free. And the reason we are having this discussion about this mural on today is the same reason that mural came down in 1966. By which I mean, it was a period of tremendous change, transition, where Africans and other people around the world refused to live under the domination of a colonial and foreign power that stepped on us, that walked on us, that sucked the blood not only from us who were living, but from the children who were yet to be born. People refuse to live in a situation where our children would not know a future any better than the horrible future that had been imposed on us. It was a change that was happening in this world. That's what Black Power was. And we were a part of this. And the thing that might make it a little difficult for some people to understand is because Florida has never been high on the radar in terms of the civil rights Black Power movement. It was happening, but nobody saw it. People had this illusion of Florida being this place of sunny beaches, occasional hurricanes, and alligators. But we lived here and we caught hell here. And the reality is there was no oppression any place in this country than the oppression that was experienced in Florida and in St. Petersburg, Florida. My daddy walked here from Georgia because this city was hiring, because it was creating this tourist industry. And it was luring Black people from through other parts of the South. And we came here and we cleared the swamps and we laid the railroad tracks. We built the roads here. Black people did. There was one Black man, his name was Elder Jordan, who started out as a peddler or something to that effect, but ended up owning a whole bunch of land here. And there used to be a Black hospital called Mercy Hospital. Elder Jordan gave the city the money for that hospital. There used to be a school called Jordan Elementary School. Elder Jordan provided the land for that school. There used to be a housing project called Jordan Park. Elder Jordan made that happen. And much of the land that was and institutions that were created by this black man for his community. Created a bus line, because the white bus line were not friendly to us and wouldn't take us to places we needed. Elder Jordan did that. And during the Depression, when the city went broke, Elder Jordan loaned the city the money to keep it afloat. And this, you don't read this in your history book. And there's not an African whose child who is harassed and can't even wear a head wrap in the school today who knows that Elder Jordan did this, the contributions that black people made to this city. And we made incredible contributions to this city. We created the tourist industry that was based on cheap black labor that was providing for white tourists that were coming from various places throughout this country and other places. And then, cheap black labor. And then, when many of the folk who brought their parents to live here, because the climate was friendly and what have you, the nursing home industry, based on cheap black labor, taking care of old white people. This city, my community did this. Was no professors, was no lawyers. These were just ordinary black people who did this and created this economy and took care of the white people. Jody Wall, who was with me when I tore this mural down, he tells the story how his mama, he was 17 years old when he was jailed, how his mama had worked for a white doctor cleaning his house. And when he was 6 years old, somebody had hit him in the eye and cut his eye. And his mama took him to the white doctor who she worked for to ask him to do something for my son. And the white doctor refused to do it. So this is the reality that we are talking about. And we shouldn't be fanciful around this question. And the African community played a profoundly important role in developing the economy of this country, and yet, by law, up until 1960 something, we were restricted by law to a 17-block, 2-square-mile area that we could live in. Now, that's the St. Petersburg, Florida, that I know, that I grew up in. And I think that we were a part of a movement, not just us in St. Petersburg, but throughout this country. Black people around the world who've been seen as this despised, wretched sector of the human population, born into slavery and treated as such. And notions of who we are as a people were forged through this process of capturing an entire population, an entire continent, and turning a people into slaves, an entire continent that was turned into a place just to breed people who would be sold into slavery. That's the reality that we've been dealing with. 600 years ago in Portugal, this mural came down 50 years ago, but 600 years ago in July, Portugal invaded Africa, initiated the assault that began kidnapping black people and dispersing us around the world. This is the context of everything that we're dealing with. This is the context that's helped to create the ideas that we have of ourselves as a people, black people, and the ideas that white people have of us as well. This is the contradiction that resulted in a damn near a forced dependency on the community, so that your leaders don't have courage, can't stand up, because they do, they're afraid that they'll offend the white man or they'll offend the government. They can't even say what's on their mind truthfully. People can't come to a meeting because if they come to a meeting, the government might bomb it, just like they did here. 1996, the city used all the tear gas in its arsenal against this very same building because they didn't want us to say something about the murder of Tyrone Lewis. This is the reality that African people are confronted with. And so in the 1960s, an incredible movement had developed. Oppressed people all around the world, Vietnam, South Africa, Cuba in 1959 became independent. People were struggling everywhere, and we were struggling here as well. So the mural wasn't about a picture. It was about the right for Black people to define ourselves for ourselves. So it was about the struggle to take power over our own lives so that no other entity could do that for us. It was about the fact that Black people pay taxes. Black people pay taxes, and the city government was getting ready to spend $50 million to beautify downtown white St. Petersburg 50 years ago. And we said, that's unacceptable. And what was happening is you had people who had been anointed leaders in our communities who were quite satisfied with things because they benefited. But our movement was one that spoke to then and today to the most oppressed sector of our population, to the working people, to the people who get hounded day in and day out by the police every day, where they talk about freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, where you can't stand up on a corner in your community without a cop riding up and telling you to give me the corner. And if you have the audacity to talk about exercising the right to free speech and saying something to the cop, you're lucky if the only thing that happens to you, you go to jail. We live in a city right now where they use SWAT teams to do traffic stops. You know what I'm talking about, Black people. Where they use SWAT teams to do traffic stops in this community. And they talking about doing a mural that's supposed to show the advancement in civil rights and inclusivity that's happened over the last 50 years. And they'll give you $50,000 if you do it. It's a lie. The struggle then was about the conditions of our people. Stifled in poverty without being able to see any kind of future for ourselves. Having to walk the way somebody wants you to walk. Having to talk the way somebody else wants you to talk. Having to act the way somebody else wants you to act until you are totally deranged. You know what I'm talking about, derangement, don't you? You've seen it before. That it ain't even good enough to be talented and rich when you're Black. Look at Michael Jackson. That's what I'm talking about. As talented and as rich as he was, he had to mutilate himself. So by the time he died, he looked like an old white woman. This is the price that we pay when somebody else controls our image and our thoughts about who we are. So there was a struggle that was happening here in this world, and we were a part of that struggle in this country. And so that mural came down on December 29, 1966. About 4 months later, in a demonstration, this is interesting, in a demonstration in Sacramento, California, demonstrating against laws that the government was going to create in California that would prohibit carrying weapons. You know, this is from reactionaries like Ronald Reagan, who believed in Second Amendment rights. But when the Black Panthers started patrolling the cops with guns, they had second thoughts about the Second Amendment. And so they were proposing, the legislature was going to be looking at prohibiting people from carrying weapons openly in California. And the Black Panther Party, just 4 months after we invaded that city hall, went into the state assembly in a demonstration in Sacramento, California, with guns. And they made the mistake of walking into the assembly floor, which was illegal. And that got some of them arrested. Something like less than 2 years later, Martin Luther King was dead. This is the era that we are talking about here. There was fierce resistance, fierce struggle. Malcolm X had already been killed in this country. And so there was this change that was sweeping the country, and it was sweeping here. And so the government had begun to have secret meetings along with the newspaper that used to formerly known as the St. Petersburg Times, with the most prominent Negro minister in the city being among them. I'm talking about Enoch Davis, for whom they have named this institution right down the street. That was to come out in opposition to the demonstrations that we were having, and to opposition to the demonstration we were having about the money and the mural. The mural came down on December 29th, 1966. But on December 25th, Christmas, 5 days earlier, we had a demonstration in front of Enoch Davis's church for that congregation, because a whole bunch of Negroes were meeting with the government in opposition. The only thing we were demanding is that black people have access to the resources that we create. If we pay the taxes, why shouldn't some of the money come into our communities? And when the mural came down, NAACP said that it was horrible the way it was done. They said the mural was really bad, but they didn't like the way it came down. I don't know how we could have took it down in the fashion that they would have liked it, except for Marvin Davies. Marvin Davies, who ended up being the state NAACP representative, and I like that guy. He was a good man. He came out and said he doesn't know how the hell the city government could have had that picture up on that wall. And we keep saying that it was a 8x4, but I've been reading it was 7 by 10 foot mural. This is what I've been reading lately. And the mural was the guy's name, what was his name? George Snow Hill. And this was a part of a project. The mural was done as a part of a project of, what was Roosevelt's program, the WPA, is that what it was? And there were part of that was a federal arts project that was funding a lot of artwork. And one of the pieces that was funded was done by George Snow Hill. Except they ran out of money. And when they ran out of money, Hill, this one that was torn down, Hill said, "That's all right. I'll pay for it myself." And he worked for several years and got that mural up there. That horrible mural was put up there. And it stayed up there for a long time, despite all of the protests that we made about it. And I want to be clear about something. I don't believe in a little bit of freedom. I don't think you can be a little free any more than you can be a little pregnant. Understand? I do not concede to the city of St. Petersburg the right to depict black people. I don't care if they get Negroes to help them do it. You understand? I'm telling you, I want to be clear on that. They don't have that right to do that. I paid for that mural. Lemuel Green paid for that mural. John Bryant paid for that mural. Crawford Jones, Tommy Williams paid for that mural. Jody Wall paid for that mural. People, we were as I've said, the original art critics. And that mural came down as a part of a struggle to benefit black people. And they want to tell us that the mural that they are going to commission, and the mayor, Kreisman, it hasn't been mentioned that in 1999, there was a discussion about doing something with the mural again. Guess who was one of the dissenting votes to keep it from going through? Kreisman, the existing mayor. Now, this mayor is going to commission the mural that's going to replace it. You must be out of your mind. Christman, B. Griswold, Kathleen Ford. I've forgotten Foster's first name, but he's the one who became mayor. And when they killed Lacey, not too far from him, and then printed the lie that Lacey ambushed them and killed those cops that they have those plaques up for, printed the lie. When you looked at what came out in terms of the grand jury hearing, that Lacey had surrendered. He said, "You got me," and that they had him on the ground, and they were putting handcuffs on him, and then they were tasering him while he was down there. That's how those cops died, and no telling who killed them. And then what does Foster do? Foster rushes to the scene, and then he has the bulldozers come. He knocks the house to the ground while the man is in the house, and then he gets trucks, takes all of the house and put it on trucks and take it away. Crime scene. Only one who wants to destroy a crime scene is a criminal. And so Hydra Lacey died, but there's progress, I'm told, inclusivity, greater inclusivity and progress. So our statement is that Africans have to be free. They would say in this city, this area of this city, that the poverty level in this area was 70 to 71% near or below poverty. That's what it was said. Don't know what it is now because they've initiated this whole gentrification process that's kicking black people out of our communities. They call it economic development, right? Kicking the people out of the community, but it was 70 to 71%. That was just a few years ago. That was the case. And so our struggle then was about the freedom of our people. You've just been reading in the newspaper, they've taken so-called community development monies right now that should be coming to the community, and you've got people up in arms because it doesn't come to this community. Only thing that's changed significantly in this city is they got a lot of black people who now are behind desk when you go into the city hall. You go in the city hall here now, you think you're in Ghana. There's so many black people in there. Where the hell did you come from? Where were you when I really needed you? I mean, that's the only thing that's changed. The conditions of our people are worse. They say they want to show the improvement. What improvement? 50 years ago in this city, there were black businesses in the city. There was a whole black district. This forest that they got on 22nd Street now, that forest, they destroyed it in the name of economic development when they ran an interstate through the community that misdirected, changed the traffic patterns and what have you, drowned and destroyed the businesses there. There were black businesses there. I was born in a community where that used to they called the gas plant area. In the name of economic development, where they lied to the black community, said we're gonna create light industry so you can have some jobs. That's what they told the people. And then everybody on the city council had agreed except one person, that was David Welch. And then they told David Welch that we'll give your brother some money for his church. And David changed his vote. They wouldn't have got my vote. They wouldn't have got my vote. And I'm just talking about this whole nonsense about inclusivity. Used to be Sidney Harden, Bill Grayson. Somebody call it out for me. Bill Gregory. I mean, various black-owned grocery stores, businesses, throughout this community. They tell them about the progress 50 years later. 50 years later, we were better off than we are today in terms of the material conditions of our people. And so what they want is a piece of art that will tell a lie. And so we say that's not acceptable. So, and in terms of inclusivity, they want a mural that shows inclusivity. Well, that was their version of inclusivity right there. That was a pretty inclusive kind of mural. From their perspective, we don't want your inclusivity. Hands off the mural. Yeah. So why are we dealing with the mural today? Even if Christman doesn't know it, even if Gwendolyn Reese and all her wisdom with the YWCA doesn't know it, even if Herb Schnitzer and Gwendolyn Reese, who sponsored some kind of celebration of the civil rights movement in this city, that actually she funded it, but it was sponsored by the Holocaust Museum. How the hell does the Holocaust Museum sponsor something on civil rights for black people? How does that happen? If they were going to have a Holocaust Museum in St. Petersburg, it should be of the black people and the Indian people who were killed. That's where the Holocaust happened. No Jews died in a Holocaust in this country, but black people did. The Indians did. The Mexicans did. Where is the museum celebrating that? We don't get a museum. We get $50,000 bribe to put up some caricature of black people that's supposed to show an inclusivity that does not exist. It's not anti-Jewish, but you can imagine the city having some kind of project that was going to be able to represent Jews on the wall. Why do you think you can do that with black people? Gwendolyn can't give you permission to do that. Gwen Reese cannot give you permission to do that. And Christman, you definitely cannot do that. And so I just wanted to say those things. And the reason we're having this discussion today is because on August 9th, 2014, some years after King had been killed, Malcolm had been killed, the Black Panther Party had been destroyed, scores and hundreds of militant black people had been imprisoned in this country. After 2 generations of black people went without the benefit of any genuine movement for liberation in this country, on August 9, 2014, militant young working class black people rose up on Canfield Drive in Ferguson, Missouri, after the police murdered 18-year-old Tyrone Lewis. Mike Brown, Tyrone Lewis, there's so many. Tyrone Lewis was killed here, but Mike Brown, and left his body rotting for 4.5 hours on asphalt in 100-degree plus weather. When those young people rose up and America showed to the rest of the world what we already knew in terms of the military equipment that they have for us. And those young people fought tit for tat with that military, and they held on for such a long period of time that it raised the morale of black people throughout this country who have been experiencing police murder, brutality, and all the other attendant ills that impact on a colonized people. When that happened, a whole new era was clearly upon us. And what we've seen since that time is growing struggle all around this country. Black people, young black people who are in motion now. And a whole movement is attempting to reemerge, talking about freedom of black people, but not just that for black people. Look at what's happening in other places around the world. People want to be free. And it's changing the narrative of the entire world. It's changing the narrative of this country. Look at what's happening in this country. You got a presidential election that's happening. And this is the process by which it has been declared the only legitimate means to change leaders in this country. But more than 60%, 64% of the people in this country saying that it's heading in the wrong direction. 64%. 59% of the people have Hillary Clinton, rather, has a 59% negative rating, and Donald Trump a 60% negative rating. And this is the only way you can change stuff. Look at what's happening with the electoral process. Look at what's happening. Don't you see that there's a new era here? You can't do stuff in the same old way. And it's an attempt to do stuff in the same old way that Gwendolyn Reese, Herb Schnitzer, Kreisman, and the other crew that's down there want to put something on that mural that disguises the reality that we are afflicted with as black people in this city and in this country. It is not permissible. It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. So the mural, it wasn't ever about a picture as such, except the picture symbolized the reality that we are confronted with as a people. That reality has to change. And that's my commitment. That's the thing that I would hope that all honest people can unite with, committing to as well. But I want to be clear about that too. When I say we have to be free, I don't mean I'm looking for another civil rights bill. I don't need your civil rights bill. Worthless. They're about as valuable as used toilet paper. I don't need your civil rights bill. I need my own freedom. I write my civil rights bill. I don't need anybody else to write a civil rights bill for us. I don't need this assumption that somehow this government that dragged us into slavery and created all these crimes against us, enriched itself at our expense, has the ability to confer some rights on me. More than anything, they should be trying to get rights from me. I mean, I'm not talking about being accepted. I'm not talking about black people being accepted by anybody except ourselves. And that's why that mural is important too. Because as long as an African would have to go through that city hall and see something up there that represents us, that somebody else has imposed on us, that's the view that's being imposed on us. That's how we are to interpret ourselves. We should be the ones doing that. We should be the ones doing that. And they would talk about Hill having an expression, free speech expression. That painting represented free speech. And it did represent free speech for Hill. But I'm not a fool. I know that freedom for the slave and the freedom for the slave master is different altogether. The freedom for the slave master requires the oppression of the slave. You can't be a slave master and without having an oppressed slave. So I'm about the total liberation of black people. I also recognize that you can't get on no boat in Africa in 1619 as an African and get off in Virginia as a Negro. That if we were Africans when we got on the damn boat, we were Africans when we got off the boat. And you don't have to go to school to learn that. You go to school to unlearn that. You understand? And so what has happened is an African nation has come under assault, and we have been dispersed all around the world, and we made the world rich, not the world, because the reality is that 80% of the people on the planet Earth try to survive off $10 or less a day. 50% of the people on Earth try to survive off $2.50 or less a day. And if you're in Africa, you're lucky if you get $1 a day, where people work all day just for a meal. That's unacceptable. And every thinking human being ought to be fighting against that, not to try to accommodate it, not to try to reconcile yourself with it, but fight against it. That's our responsibility. That's my responsibility. I thank you so much for coming out and sharing a few moments with me about the mural. I saw some pictures that I've seen only the first time a couple of days ago, not all of them, but some of them. There's one picture that's up there someplace on the same day. That's right before I went in and took the mural down. And there's another picture of me leaving a holding cell going into the court in St. Petersburg, Florida, St. Petersburg, this city. And there's just a lot of interesting photos here. It brings back a lot of memories, and it helps to also demonstrate that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And we won't tolerate this. I want to just thank you all for coming out. I'm glad that people talked a little bit about who we are, because some people have a rather provincial notion of who we are. And as has been stated, you know, we have organization in various places around the world. I have organized in Stockholm. We have organizations in Sweden and Holland. We have organizers in France and the United Kingdom. We have organization in the Caribbean. We have organization in South Africa right now. We have organization in Sierra Leone. We have organizers in Nigeria. We have organizers in various places around the world and throughout this country. And so it's not just some little provincial thing that we're involved in. And anybody who wants to help us pay for this building can do it. By the way, just to say a little something about that, you know, this whole notion that somebody gave us this building as some kind of payoff is crazy. And if you know somebody who said that, bring them to me, because if they think that's happening, maybe they're taking the money and I want it, you know. So I just want to express my appreciation, to Penny Hess. Penny Hess is an incredible woman. She has been with this movement for 40 years, which is longer than most of you have been alive. And she is a bold woman, because most white people, when they become organizers and militants and what have you, the first thing they do is run to this community, run to a Mexican community. The hardest work in the world to do, Aska, is working in the white community. Taking a progressive and militant idea into a white community, that's a difficult task. And she's done that now for 40 years. And I see some of the evidence of the success of her work in this room with her. This work they do for African peoples, the Day in Solidarity with African people, is really important. Part of that is to never allow our struggle to be isolated again. In the past, they were able to isolate us, and they were able to rely on absolute solidarity in the white community and do all kinds of nasty things to us. Now they cannot rely on absolute white solidarity. And the other thing that's really important is that we believe in national liberation. Let's say Africans as a nation, we have to be free. But we want all people to be free. We want the Mexican people to be free. People are talking about Trump and the damn wall. Talking about is that the United States stole half of Mexico. It stole half of Mexico at gunpoint. The Treaty of Hidalgo in 1848 came about, the gold rush in California, what have you, was one of the things that precipitated it. But they stole half of Mexico. And if there are poor Mexicans on either side of the border, part of the reason is because half of the country was stolen from them. We live in a country right now where there are people who live in concentration camps that they call Indian reservations. That's the reality of this country. And so, you know, talk about Trump if you want to, but Obama has kicked out more people in this country than any president in history. Did you know that? Obama has kicked out more Mexicans from this country than any president in history. Talk about Trump and the wall. We got a bigger problem than that. And I'm hoping that you'll join us in trying to look into the total question so that we can change this reality, so we can end the world of slaves and slave masters and bosses and workers and what have you, so that human beings can be free and nobody has to live at the expense of anybody else. Thank you so much. Uhuru.
I want to give the chairman a round of applause. Really powerful. And we're going to open it up for discussion in a few minutes. But before we do that, there's something that we do at all of our events. That's where we ask you to participate in contributing to the work about Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And we do that because, as the chairman laid out, there's no is from people just like you all over the world. That's important. A large work of the institutions, the furniture stores, the Uhuru Pies, the Uhuru Foods out in Oakland, and all of the institutions that the African People's Movement Party has for self-determination to raise resources to fund this movement. So we want to ask people to be able to contribute tonight, and we're gonna we have want to show you and she is going to tell you a little bit what's on
He was jailed for 2.5 years for tearing down the St. Petersburg City Hall's radio mural. While he was incarcerated, he formed a junta of military organizations. In 1972, Jomo station in the United States. One Africa, One Nation Marketplace developed One Africa, One Nation Marketplace in every city and community where African people live to meet our needs for commerce and to retain the majority of the resources to circulate within the community. And Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles in Oakland and Philadelphia. You can see the picture. Planet Uhuru Apparel distributes t-shirts, jackets, and more. With Planet Uhuru Apparel, you can look stylish while making a powerful statement in support of African self-determination and solidarity. We're calling on you to support the ongoing life's work of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Free Africa and African people, African independence in the Chairman's lifetime. It's our goal to raise tonight to support these programs that we told you about. Our goal is to raise $1,500.
So, if you want to open it up, with a basket, and it has a little card, and you can pull it out. And we're asking people, first of all, is there anybody here that would like to give $1,500? Great way to show your solidarity with what you're doing. And we're that this is a chance. And our relationship to be able to stand give any amount you would like to. I would like to, is there anybody here that would like to give 500? 500. Anybody like to give 500? That's not. I'm going to give 100 tonight, $100. So I would like to know if there's anybody that can match me on that. Anybody that can match me? Shirley Reiner. I really want to salute Shirley, who is been a supporter of this movement for many, many years, and who is also the widow of a dear, dear friend of the Uhuru movement, Jan Reiner, who was a great person, you know, in this community. Maxine. All right, Uhuru. Maxine. All right, Jordan. Uhuru. All right, thank you, Uhuru. Scott Militer in the back, Uhuru. Really appreciate that. This is great. Anybody else want to give $100? Oh, Miss Kicklighter. Uhuru. Uhuru. Anybody? Okay, so Ann.
All right, so now we're calling on people to give $50. So at this point, we've raised $600 of the $1,500. Uhuru.
All right, we're almost halfway there.
Yeah. So if there's anyone who'd like to give $50, I'm going to give $50 tonight. Is there anybody else who would like to match me for that? Janice? Uhuru, Janice.
Anybody else like to give $50? Sandra, Horace.
I think it's really important, this particular part of the program, because as white people, we know that our lifestyle was built at the expense of African people and indigenous people. And the only just way, in my view, is for us to take a stand, is to give back those resources. We can't act like we support and say kind words and even go to a demonstration if we don't turn back over the resources to make the justice happen.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, Deputy Chair Onitsune, $50. Uhuru. Uhuru. All right. Anybody else want to give $50 tonight? Oh yeah, online. I forgot. We have some people watching online. Okay, right now we want people can go to the donate button on the live streaming, and you can donate there online and let us know in the chat. So what we're going to do right now is, if you want to give any amount whatsoever, we're going to pass the basket around. Our comrade Kyle is picking up the envelopes you have there. So go ahead and give, and we'll let you know before we close how much we did raise tonight. We really appreciate all the support of everybody in this room. Uhuru. Thank you, Ann. Powerful. All right, so I want to do something very important before we go to discussion, and this is a very important struggle that's really related to the question of the mural, as the chairman just laid out. I want to bring up Kundai Mwambita, who is the mother of Dominique Battle, who was murdered by the sheriff, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, on March 31st of this year, along with two of her friends. That Kundai also was a real mother to as well. And on the night of March 31st, the girls were driving in a car in the northern part of the city. And according to the sheriff's department, according to Killer Bob Galtieri, the sheriff, they didn't have their headlights on. But as James McLinus has showed us in the video, their headlights were on. So what they were guilty of was driving while black. And they were chased in a high-speed chase by the first sheriff, the first deputy that saw them or decided to chase them for no probable cause, for no reason whatsoever, except that they were African young women, girls who were driving the car. And after a while, because they were not able to continue the chase, because Pinellas County, I guess, does have a ban on high-speed chases, although they do it all the time. But he then called Deputy Skaggs, who's the head of the DUI unit, who then, in an unmarked car, chases the girls, which is something that he's done in the past. And he gets them into a situation, basically, where they turn into a cemetery, very deserted cemetery up in the northern part of the city. And Skaggs knows the cemetery really well. He testified to that, or he said that in his report. So he gets them on a road, and they're driving. At this point, he's driving in a very menacing way. And the girls are no doubt terrified. And they don't know who's behind them. And so they're driving down this road to escape this person who is in a car, who's threatening them, who's intimidating them. And Skaggs knows that at the end of that road, there's a pond, and that they're going to go into that pond. He had intent to kill them, and he did. And while he is doing this, he's calling backup. So when the car gets to the pond, there are 15 or 17 other deputy sheriffs there on the spot and a helicopter. And the car goes into the pond, and Sheriff Galtieri said that they were 20 yards into the pond. They were 15 feet into the pond. And I just want to say, that mural is 10 feet. That mural is 10 feet. So they were 15 feet away. There were 15 to 17 sheriff's deputies there. And these sheriff deputies are so-called first responders. And that means, according to their own definition online on their website, a first responder is somebody who goes into a situation to help, not runs away. That, as James McLinus has really helped us to understand, the back seat of every sheriff's vehicle is a flotation device. And you can take it out and put it in the water. But they didn't do that. They stood around and watched as the car was right here. 17 of them watched as the car went down. And we see on TV all the time how they have helicopters coming with people in floods and get them out of the car and break the windows. They didn't do any of that. And the video that the sheriffs released, they were sitting around saying, "Oh, well, I thought I heard them yelling." And the other sheriff goes, "They're done. They're effing done. This is what happened. This is what happened." And they did this state, this vicious sheriff's department as the colonial state against the African community. Can you imagine if that were white girls? Would they have done that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the first thing that Sheriff Galtieri did was the next day he had a press conference, and he slandered the family, he slandered the girls, and he slandered the entire African community. He said it was a stolen car. Well, first of all, we don't know what happened that night. They can't say. The three girls can't say. We know what they say about it. Is that what justifies it? And whatever happened? Their lights weren't out, so they were murdered for what? For what? You know, and I just feel that Kundai Mwambita is powerful. She's a fighter. And she has said, what happens in the night will come out in the day. And I am calling on all of the white community, everybody that's here, to stand with her and with the African community because the sheriff's department and the police is not going to take for granted that we will sit back and do nothing. That this sheriff's department is going to pay, they're going to pay reparations, Galtieri's going to go, and Howard Skaggs is going to go to prison. And that's what we want to see. And I want to call up Kundai Mwambita, powerful fighter, very powerful fighter.
Good evening. My name is Kundai, and on March 31st, 2016, my life will be forever changed because 3 beautiful young ladies who only wanted to live their life, to be teenagers, to be alike, to enjoy each other, were murdered. Dominique Battle, 16, Lanaya Miller, 15, and Ashanti Butler, 15, will never walk through my door again. I would never hear their laughter. I would never sit and watch them do each other hair or bring over other friends. I would never see them in my living room. I would never wash their clothes or even feed them ever again because they were African. Their ancestors, generations and generations, were stolen from Africa. And because they were stolen, my 3 girls had to suffer a fatal death that they should have never had to face. On March 31st, I was at work. And about 11 a.m. in the morning, about 15 police officers showed up at my job. And as they asked me my name and wanted to speak to me, at that time, my name was Yashika Clemens. They began to question me and ask me where my kids were, what they have on, what school did they go to. And the only thing I could think about was Child Protective Services. But I have never done anything wrong but work my behind off to take care of my 5 children. And yes, I'm a single mother because they want to lock their fathers away in prison because they try to sit out here. And yes, they sell drugs, but they try to do it to support their families, and they lock them up for 15 and 20 and 30 years. And then they want to come to my job, and they want to question me like I'm just somebody who just throw their children to the street. And they asked me to describe my children. And the only thing I can think about is why? What's going on? Why are they all here? And then they want me to describe what she was wearing. And so I tell them what she had on when she left. Because all 3 of them girls was at my house. And they left my house at 8:30 that night to go to Lanaya Miller's grandma's house, which was a few blocks away. And they were supposed to return. And after I get to describing what Dominique had on and how her hair was and how she looked and the tattoos that she had on her, my name on her thigh, her brother's name on her arm, the cop looks at me and he says, "She's dead." No remorse whatsoever. Like they were just talking to each other in a casual conversation. And the only thing they want to continue to tell me over and over and over is that it wasn't chasing them. And I couldn't force myself to watch the videos, even though it was all on Facebook and everything, social media, that people was talking about it. But then I didn't have a choice because somebody had to fight for these girls. But what I didn't know was that the Hero movement was already fighting for them. They were already out there doing demonstrations and getting petitions signed and knocking on doors and handing out door flyers because they wanted justice for lives that were stolen. And they did a demonstration at the courthouse, and I was invited to come. And ever since then, I've been a part of the Hero movement. And I will continue to be a part of the Hero movement because I'm here to fight for freedom for every African, for every oppressed person. We have the right to this land. We have a right to be free. They're not going to continue to kill us and get with it. And when I thought I was fighting by myself, I wasn't. Because the Hero movement was there fighting with me. They were fighting for me, just like they're here to fight for you and to be with you. So I suggest that you join. Don't wait too late like I did, because that's the only mistake I made, was not being a hero before the death of my girls. But I don't apologize to them. I don't apologize to Bob Guillermo. I don't apologize to any of those sheriff's officers or their families. And I don't accept their apologies either. They could take that and shove it somewhere. And I would say other words, but there are young ladies in here. There's women in here, and I respect my elders. But if they think that I'm going to sit back and take hush money, and then I'm going to sit here and act like they didn't do that to them girls, and that they're not killing us off, then they're wrong. I'm fighting, and I suggest you join the fight. This is the only organization that is here that's fighting for the freedom of Africans, that's fighting to get oppressed people free, indigenous people free. We don't sit out there and say freedom for nothing. We don't walk around and do demonstrations and talk for nothing. We're doing it because we have the right to be free. And then they want us to sit in these courthouses and vote for presidents and elect presidents. For what? None of these presidents are doing anything for us. They show up time after time after time. Look at the jail rate and how many Africans are sitting in jail. Not just men, but women and teenagers as well. My 15-year-old son just got released August the 22nd from a state program for 9 months. And he still has to do 9 months of probation. He has to go to a program for 2.5 hours after school. And then he has a curfew to be in the house at 7 p.m. And they think I'm not going to fight? They messed with the wrong mother that night. They took those 3 beautiful young ladies in the dark. But we're going to come for that in the light. We refuse to sit around and let y'all continue to kill us off. And the only reason why they're killing us off because they know we're strong in powers. We're strong in numbers. And they fear us. So the only way that they can make us fear them is by killing us. By shooting us in our heads while we sleep in beds. By killing us while we children play on playground with toy guns. By leaving our bodies to rot on cement in a hot sun. But they're not making us scared. They're pissing us off. That's what they're doing. And then they want to sit around and have President Obama talking about how he's sorry for the police officers. You know what he should be sorry for? He should be sorry that he don't know how to be an African. That he don't know how to fight for freedom. That's what he should be sorry for. So I ask you to join us. Because we need to get Black community control of the police. We need to get Black community controls of these schools. They're not going to continue to tell us that we're not allowed to be African. They're not going to tell us how to wear our hair and how to dress and how to walk down the street. We don't tell them how to dress. But every time you turn around, they got dreadlocks. They're wearing dashikis. Really? Okay. Like I said before, we coming for that butt. Uhuru.
Thank you, Kundai. Uhuru. Uhuru. So we're going to open it up for discussion. We have another mic over here. And I just want to unite. Everybody has to join this movement. And for the white people, that's the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Jesse and Johan are over at their table. Jamie's here. Anne's here from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And we're gonna take on the fight. We're gonna win others from the white community, not to go along, not for, they can't expect us anymore to be silent as they terrorize and torture the African community, as they kill these young people. We're gonna stand up for reparations, for justice, and for the right of African people to be free in solidarity. Uhuru, I'm not in front of the mic. So I'm gonna open it up for discussion. If you have any questions for Chairman Omali Yeshitela or any comments. And I also wanted to say on your program tonight, this little program, if you didn't get one, you can get one over at the table. It's saying that here's some things that we can do around the mural. One is that we want to speak out at the City Council's open forum on September 22nd. That's the next City Council meeting at 1:30 p.m. in the St. Petersburg City Hall. We're going to demand a plaque, and they can't go through with this. They're saying the deadline for the new painting is October 1st. No, that's not going to happen. You can also write a letter to the Tampa Bay Times. You can write a letter to the mayor demanding a plaque and an apology to Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Chairman, you want to come forward? Uhuru. So does anybody have anything that you want to ask, you want to say? Go to the mic over here, and we welcome your input. Nothing? Uhuru. No comments, Chairman?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. I do hope that if there are any questions, issues that anybody has, that you'll raise them. I think we should demand a plaque, instead of this mural that they keep talking about, another picture. I think there should be a plaque up there that where the city acknowledges what it did for having that mural up there, not just some plaque that says on such and such a date this happened, but the city needs to accept responsibility in the first place for having it there. And the plaque needs to also acknowledge the people that we don't hear about, like Lemuel Green, who's dead now, and Jody Wall, who was 17 when this happened to him, and Tommy Williams, and Crawford Jones, and John Bryant. I think the plaque needs to acknowledge all of those persons who took that mural down. And again, acknowledge the city's responsibility for having it there in the first place and saying what happens. And I think that the city needs to do an apology to the people who who went to jail for tearing the mural down, and also to the Black community of St. Petersburg for having it up there in the first place. I don't like the idea of a mural. I thought I might like the idea of a mural, but you ever see the commercial, or those commercials that they show? They selling some kind of what they call medication. And then at the times when they're telling you that if you take this stuff, it's gonna kill you, drive you crazy, do something else to you. And all the time they're telling you this, they're showing you these lovely pictures Jews, right? And I see the picture that they want to do is playing the same role while black people are being killed by this administration, by America, by everything, all the policies that comes from this city government and all the others. They want to have this rosy picture up there that tells a lie. The first picture that was done by George Snow Hill really was a kind of Chamber of Commerce promo. It was a promotional thing. You know, this is the beach and sunny, and Snow described this thing as some kind of African black troubadours that travel from beach to beach and playing music. And he said that they were just really he was, how did he put it, endearing or something to that effect. You know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of stuff that he was saying. And what I'm saying is, I think that we need to have a statement up there that tells the history, that contributes to the struggle, as opposed to contributing to the pocketbook of some wannabe artist. One, I think that's really important. And I know that $50,000 is a lot of money, and that there are, you know, people who never thought about drawing a mural. There are probably people in art school now, since they announced $50,000 bounty for that thing. But I really think that it was never about the mural, it was about the people. I think that what goes up there should reflect that. So instead of the mural being something that covers the crime, put a plaque that takes responsibility for it and acknowledges the people who took it down. People who are associated now with this whole process, none of them has any history of ever being involved in the struggle for black people. Not a single one of them. Not Gwendolyn Reese. Schnitzer made his career taking pictures of black people. That's what he did. He's, you know, Miles Davis and Nina Simone. He's got these photos and stuff like that. He's a parasite. Now he's going to participate in another picture. You know, I just think that the mural, the plaque should reflect this history, this tradition. And people shouldn't be using this opportunity to make history for themselves, which is what somebody wants to do, make history for themselves by putting a damn mural up there, a picture up there. See, so that's my view on that. I really think that something should recognize what the city did by putting it up there, why it came down. They want to know why it came down, and acknowledge the people who took it down. Because most of the people are black people in this city. They don't work for the YWCA. They don't have the mayor's phone number in their back pocket. They don't know any of these big shots that make stuff happen. They're not the Ken Welches who put on his wading boots to go out to prove that it was the police were justified in allowing those girls drown. He's the county commissioner, by the way. I've never seen him with his wading boots out here to try to help African people get out of this mess we're in. The people who we represent, the people in this community, the majority of them are not those people. So you can't read about, you can't get a quote from them. You can't get a quote from Kundai. You know, you get a quote by the murderer, the person who killed her. You get a quote from the person, Skaggs, for example, didn't just kill, it wasn't mentioned, Skaggs didn't just kill her daughters, but Skaggs in 2002, I think it was involved in the murder of another 18-year-old black child. What was his name? Laborio, yeah. And he jumped in the water, but he said he was jumping in the water to save the dog who they had sicked on the boy. Those are the people who don't have a voice. Those are the people who have to have an opportunity to speak. And that's what it is that we represent. So anyway, and they don't have a voice. I mean, we had a whole program pushing for economic development for this city, for black people in this city. And they fought against it. We had a meeting, we forced the bankers and a whole bunch of other folk right over there to the community center right down the way. And all of them let us know that they're in business to make money. That's what it is. But you know the problem with that, don't you? They're in business to make money. But your preachers every Monday take your money and put it in a bank. And when you go to the mall, they take the money that you put there and put it in the bank. And some of you have had accounts in the bank yourself. But when you want, the bank takes that money and they make money with your money. But when you want to have access to your own money, the banks tell you, we're here to make money, not to let you make money. The city, I forgot how many $1 million they spent for that joint down there where that had a turtle and a couple of storks or something like that, flamingos, right? They gave, I think, up to $13 million. They gave $12 million for a Baywalk and what have you, but no economic development for this community. When you talk about economic development, something wrong with you. And rather than give economic development, you know what they did? We had a whole campaign. We had demonstrations, economic development, not police containment. And what they did with Darussan, who just got reelected to something, he joined their campaign saying we don't need economic development until we take care of the crime. And he's the one who got part of the money that went to the Sweet Bay deal that they made. The people don't have anything. And the government would rather pay off Darussan than to make some transparent economic development available for my people. And we don't accept that. We don't accept that. We don't accept that. We don't accept that. We don't accept that at all. Not at all. And even our liberal friends can't get us to accept that. Yeah. So is there anything, any comments, any questions that anybody might have? This is strange. Okay. Uhuru, Ann.
Well, I'm just remembering after you ran for mayor and you created CUSP, Citizens United for Shared Prosperity.
Yes.
And we worked for a few years, and you had a brilliant idea to make an African village here in this area that would build businesses and would uplift the Black community. That, you know, all of the money, the Black grant money that comes, like the chairman was talking about, from the statistics of poverty. And one of the things I remember at a meeting just being amazed, because you read like what it said, and what it says in those Black grants money is, it is to disperse poverty. It is not to rectify poverty. It is not to take care of a community that's impoverished, really, you know, at their expense, like the chairman's been saying. Our community has been built. And so that was so appalling to me. I mean, now that I've been around the Who movement longer and I've learned more, I know that's just how they work. But I just want to acknowledge the brilliance of the chairman's ideas over the years, and to realize that, you know, I just came back from Seattle, and what I saw was the downtown beautified with obviously millions of dollars. So you said it was happening back when the mural was torn down. It was happening when you ran for mayor, and it's still happening today. So
I worked in Seattle. There were the Seattle, I'm trying to remember if it were a school or something that was there, and the community was fighting the government in Seattle because they wanted to put a police station right there in the African community. And the community was, I occupied that building with them for a period of time in Seattle. But yeah, the question is economic development. And here, the proposal that I had fronted was that the city makes so much money on tourism. And African people participate in the tourist industry, in the restaurants and the hotels, cleaning up. But a genuine effort of economic development would be one that would allow Africans to participate in the tourist industry. And our idea was that since white people and others fly over and float around St. Petersburg and Florida, going to the Bahamas, going to the islands and what have you, to experience the same culture with a different accent, why not take some of that money that's invested by us involuntarily into the economy and establish an African a kind of community that would have shops, movie theater, grocery stores, all the stuff that's not here, but also it could cater to the tourists, the same tourists that's being brought here that African people don't have the benefit from, and where African people cannot, areas where we can't go without being chased by the police like Baywalk. Why not just transform much of the African community into such a place like that where we could be an industry? You know, that was just an idea, but it was better than anything the city ever came up with. It was better than bribery, which is what they have done to sectors of your community, turn your preachers into wimps and people who are supposed to be leaders. That was the proposal. But the problem is the city can't do that. And the reason the city can't do that is because if African people in this city could have the ability to work in our own industry, in our own shops, in our own stores and what have you, then who the hell was going to go to the beaches for cheap wages? Who's going to take care of the tourists? Who's going to take care of the old white people in the nursing homes? And an African with an opportunity would prefer to work for less in your own community where you're treated with dignity and what have you, and the money continues to circulate in your community so that it can help to create some kind of social wealth, would rather work, even if it's for less, than to take those long, Sister Kundai, how long does it take you by bus? Where do you work, Pasadena? By an hour on bus to take care of her. She got to take care of her 4 children, 5 children she's taking care of, get them ready for school, hop on a bus, ride for an hour to get there. She's at 5 o'clock in the morning, she's up doing that. And then late at night, she's coming back by bus. Why do that if you had industry in your own community? But if you had the ability to do that in your own community, then who's going to take care of those who come to the Hilton? Who's going to take care of those white people, tourists, and other people who come here if you don't have cheap black labor? So they ain't going to do it. Let's forget about it. And if they don't do it, if there's no economic development, then how are people going to live? And people are going to do what's necessary to live, because nobody's going to starve just because it's against the law to get some money. When there's money and wealth all around, Africans are not going to starve. So if you don't have economic development, then you have to have a public policy of police containment. It's either a public policy of economic development or a public policy of police containment. And they choose police containment in every instance. And there are some people who have to facilitate that from our own community. Anyway, I want to express appreciation for all of you for coming out. And James McLinus is running for sheriff, he says. And I wish you were, and I wish you had literature and campaign stuff, you know. When is that election? In the beginning of November. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think that would be a great idea to vote for James McLinus. Yeah, for sheriff. For sheriff, you know? And what part of November? Where am I going to be when that election happens? Am I going to be in DC then? That weekend? Yeah. Okay. So I haven't voted in a long time. I'm registered, but I'm going to go and vote for James McLinus. And anything, I mean, not just because it's better than voting for Bob Galtieri, but also because I think we see an honest man. I really believe that, and I've seen the stuff. You should go to his website. You know, you see an honest person who's really struggling with ideas about how to deal with the whole question of law enforcement and how to challenge some of the traditions of violence and the other stuff that comes with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. So, so I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote. You know, if I was in Chicago, I'd vote 5 or 6 times. And I'd get my dead uncle to vote if I were in Chicago. But I'm going to do that. And I really think people should support him. And go, like I said, go to his website. You know, I think it's very good. And while we're voting for him, we're going to be giving Bob Galtieri hell. We're going to make it, give him hell. Give him hell. He gives this community hell. And were you on the city council when Goliath Davis prohibited the sheriff department from coming into the city? Yeah. And we had a black police chief. I'm not talking about this clown, this penguin, who's, how's that? Yeah, he specifically requested, and as long as that request was alive, you didn't see them here. And that was because of the reputation of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. We went 8 years in this city without a single African being killed by the police. 8 years when after Goliath Davis was there and the movement was able to sustain it. When the Sheriff's Department was allowed back in, they were the ones that initiated the killing of black people. They killed McCullough. They killed not Javon Dawson, but Jared Walker. Didn't just kill, he was asleep. He was asleep in his bed, and they threw a flashbang grenade in there. His baby was in the room next to him, and they walked and stood over him when he was just waking up and killed him. Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, they shot McCullough, they shot into his vehicle 17 times. And then said it was the wrong guy. And said that in this instance, the cameras on both vehicles were inoperable. They weren't working. So, yeah, this is the issue that we're involved in. So let's get rid of these guys, you know, and I'm just sorry that James didn't start early enough with a, you know, real big campaign, because we would have hit the bricks for you. We would have hit the bricks for you. Not because we expect anything except not to be getting killed, you know, like we are now. You know, I mean, that's some relief, you know, if not to be hunted down and like animals and killed. So anyway, how many people in here registered? Oh, hell. You got at least that many votes, I believe, Jane. You know? Yeah, right on. So I just want to introduce also Comrade Eric Cabajal. This is Comrade Eric Cabajal, compañero.
Hi, Uhuru Chairman.
Uhuru.
Everyone.
Go ahead.
I just want to send a warm revolutionary greetings from Los Angeles, from a group called Unión del Barrio. We've been around for over 30 years in San Diego, Los Angeles, Oxnard, and Riverside areas in Southern California. Doing a lot of the same work for over 3 decades now with the Uhuru movement and APSP. So really excited to be here. This is my first time at the Uhuru House, my first time in St. Pete. And I just want to, you know, once again say that really proud and excited to be here. We talk about murals. We actually painted a mural, community mural about 2 years ago. And the chairman It's actually up on the wall in South Central Los Angeles.
What?
You know, and you know, we brought the community together. It's really awesome social justice mural. You know, a lot of revolutionary themes. So just wanted to say uhuru to everyone. Really excited to be here. Presence of so many great comrades. So
Uhuru. Thank you so much. Yeah, Comrade Eric is Zamima Unya de Barrio. They've been around for like 35 years, and for at least 30 of those years or more, maybe 33 of those years, we've been working together. And we've gone across that border together. We've had marches across that Mexican border together, and I've learned a lot from this relationship. It's something to be in occupied Mexico that they call California, and to see, it's incredible to watch the news and to see on the news like all these white people who have come, because we were often in San Isidro and San Diego, which is right at the border, and to see all these white people who would come there and they say they're coming to watch the illegal aliens come across the border. I say, but damn, you're about 100 years too late. You understand? The illegals, you know, the illegals are now legal, and the ones who own the land, the custodians, are now being characterized as illegal. So I learned a lot from that relationship. I learned a lot watching Mexicans who, at the end of the day, were walking up into the mountains with their plastic Luckies and Safeway bags, going to live, sleeping in caves after they work all day picking the vegetables and what have you for the white people in Los Angeles and San Diego now. I mean, it's an incredible thing. I learned a lot from that relationship, and these are eternal comrades, these comrades. And like I said, some people don't understand who we are. But we're internationalists, and our love for our comrades, Mexican comrades, and is eternal. I want to thank everybody for coming out, and I want to turn it back over to Comrade Penny Hess, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru. I want to thank Kundai Mwamvita for that powerful and moving presentation. I want to call up Comrade Jesse to tell us how much we raised tonight. Uhuru. Yes, and to announce the day in solidarity.
Uhuru, everybody. So I'm excited to announce that tonight this room raised $1,125 towards Black Star Industries.
Right. Thank you.
So we really want to salute the powerful stance that everyone here has shown in response to the incredible presentations that were given tonight, and in solidarity with the struggle for African self-determination and reparations, which Black Star Industries, as we've seen, is concretely building. So this is really powerful, a really powerful stance that everyone here has taken, as well as people who are watching online, including comrades in occupied Mexico, also known as California, that are watching, and other places that donated tonight as well. Uhuru. So before I step away, I also wanted to announce, you heard about this earlier, and this is the next major event that the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is holding here in the city of St. Petersburg, but it's not just happening in St. Petersburg. As was mentioned, it's also happening in Huntsville, Alabama, Oakland, California, San Diego, California, Gainesville, Boston, and Seattle. And these are 7 cities where there will be days in solidarity with African people, which is the most significant event that the African People's Solidarity Committee holds every single year, and has for over 20 years in response to a call that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party made for the African People's Solidarity Committee to hold these days to define what the stance of white solidarity with African liberation looks like, and to build a white people's movement for reparations to African people. This year's events are specifically highlighting the campaign for justice for Dominique Battle, Ashanti Butler, and Lanaya Miller. And at most, or possibly all of these events, Kundai Mwamvita, who we had the honor of hearing her powerful presentation earlier, will be speaking. And it's extremely important that people in 7 different cities will have the opportunity to hear Kundai Mwamvita. And also, Chairman Omali Yeshitela will be the keynote speaker at many of these events, and Chairwoman Penny Hess speaking specifically to the role and responsibility of white people. And this campaign will go throughout the month of October, and the one in St. Pete, the kickoff event, is so historic because it is taking place on the same weekend in the same city that 40 years ago, Chairman Omali Yeshitela held a conference to form the African People's Solidarity Committee, something that had never been done before, where a party of the African working class created an organization of white people working under its leadership to organize other white people for reparations. So this event will salute and celebrate the genius and leadership and legacy of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the party, and the vision for white people to be able to join humanity through solidarity with African people, and also salute Chairwoman Penny Hess, who made history as well as being the first white person to ever embrace the call to become an African internationalist, and who leads the African People's Solidarity Committee today, 40 years later. So this is a very, very significant event. Please come to this event. Take flyers with you, pass them out. October 2nd, 4 o'clock, right here in Aquaba Hall in this historic building. And after hearing Kundai Mwamvita's presentation earlier, frankly, white people, we have no excuse to not be here on October 2nd, because this campaign is part of giving Bob Gualtieri hell. And it's part of driving Skaggs into the prison cell that he deserves to be in, and winning reparations to Kundai and to the African community. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you, Jesse. I just want to say one other thing. I want to salute Comrade Liu, who's leading a powerful struggle at Gibbs High School for the right of African young women to wear their African clothes and their head wraps. And this is going viral. It's being picked up all over the country and even other parts of the world and in Africa itself. So she's a powerful leader of the Uhuru movement here. So I want to salute her. Uhuru. I want to thank all of you for coming out. Please help yourself to more food and, meet and greet. And we just really appreciate you. We want everybody to sign up and take on this fight against the Sheriff's Department and build a plaque, win a plaque for the mural. Uhuru. Uhuru.
I'm telling you now, they call me love and dad. I'll rock and roll them all night long. I'm a 60-minute man.